Hey, Len, back on the show for round two. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Do a lot of people get to come on the second time, or am I an anomaly?
Well, you're very special.
Thank you. In so many different ways.
I love special people, don't worry.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming back on, and this is an exciting episode for me because we get to bear my genetics to the world.
Are you ready for that? Are you ready to share with everyone? Because I'm going to go deep in putting the tea leaves together and seeing what puzzle pieces we can come up with. So.
Oh yeah, no, let's do it. I don't have any secrets, which is probably one of my my negative points, unfortunately.
Could be a positive. I don't know. It depends how you look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Could be both. So we're going to do that, and I also wanted to step through, what's new in the cannabis industry, what's new for you. We're going to step through your book as well, which is I'm really excited to hear about, and the process of you writing a book, because that baffles me in itself. Because for me to actually write a book, I don't know how that would happen. So.
Yep.
And yeah, just talking a little bit more of a summary of endocannabinoid system and cannabis for those who haven't listened in on part one. So just to start with, obviously we're filming this, and it's also going to be a screen share of my report. So those who want to jump onto YouTube and see this, that's probably going to be the best way of looking at this and get the most out of it. So to start with, tell us what's sort of new for you, what's new in your world, what's new for the cannabis industry.
First of all, yeah, what's new for me is I'm trying to get better on my sleep. I had a bunch of different people. I did my sleep biohacking thing. I did some other stuff with Stephen Kotler's Institute and I found that I need a reset. So all this thing of going full speed ahead, you really need to take a look at yourself and do a reset. So sleep is really important, which I haven't been really good at, but now I'm working on that personally. As far as business, research. I mean, we just published a study on cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. You can find it in the PubMed and CBI database. And it's with Dr. Ethan Russo and a couple of our team, and we published that to look at what genetic predispositions are associated with the expression of this. I'm not sure if it's a syndrome, but this condition, I would say, because we're not using it as a diagnostic tool, basically. And then we're doing some research with a major university. I'm not at liberty to say which university yet, but we signed an agreement. It's one of the top universities in probably the world, Ivy League, so somebody can guess who it is, but I'll be making that announcement shortly. So basically, we're doing all the research they're doing in terms of cannabinoid medicine. They're going to genotype using endoDNA kits. So I'm really excited about that. And then building our mental health report. That's a big area of focus for us, because one of the things we see is, besides people being affected with COVID, but the side effects of mental health aspects of it and how that affects your physical health. We want to guide people into a process that's going to be more aligned with them personally, and your genetics play a big role in that. In addition, things like psychotropic treatments and certain adverse events that are associated with individuals. If you have a little more guidance, you can get a lot more precise in your treatment protocol. So, and I guess we're also in the middle of a fundraise for Series B. So I'm trying to run a business, raise capital, do research, and then sleep. So that's why sleep has been really difficult, because not enough hours to do everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know how you sleep. I'll have to tell me all about writing a book, don't forget.
Yes, a book. Yes, a book and a podcast. I do a podcast and the book. The process of writing a book for me wasn't I don't know if you want to jump into it now, but
yeah, go for it.
Started. So this is a 2-year process, and I'm not a writer. So the person who wrote this book is Dr. Brian Kaufman, who's my co-writer. But the way that we did it first is, I don't mind talking, so I just talked my thoughts into my phone, and I would share files with him. So the first iteration of the book, when we got it, I read it and I gave a couple people, and it was really dry. He captured, he transcribed everything that I said, but it didn't have my voice, right? It was missing my voice. So what we decided to do was go back and sort of Zoom twice a week and go through each chapter as we're writing it, and then see if we can capture my voice. So that's kind of how it was written. But it was a long, tedious process, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah. And as the title says, making cannabis personal, it definitely had to have your voice behind it then, because it's really in the title, and making people is probably an easier read in that way as well, and just really captures what you're trying to say.
It's not a long read. My business partner told me, he goes, I want you to write a book that you can read from LAX, Los Angeles Airport, to JFK Airport on a plane. So it's got to be something you can read in one flight. So that's kind of how it is. And that's why I end up sticking a bunch of pictures in there to take up space. But the idea is it talks about my story so people can get a background on how I got into the space and what cannabis meant in my life and how it's personal to me. And then what I wanted to do was let people know different stories of different people, their experiences with cannabis, so they can start aligning with an archetype. So they can talk about, oh, I'm just like Jim the veteran, or I'm just like Grandma Mary. So you're not alone, and it's a personalized experience, but there's other people who have this experience as well, so you can start aligning with them. And so it's people's stories, my stories, and hopefully people will enjoy it.
And it's the best way to teach people and to align with someone's life is to give examples and where they can, like you say, they can reflect or be like the archetype that they want to be like. And then that's how they're learning, that's how they remember, and much more open to something that they may never have tried before. So amazing. Yep. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Can't wait to read it. And I did say to you already, I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list. Absolutely, I can't wait. So what else has been going on in terms of, I want to dive into a bit of a summary of the endocannabinoid system for those who haven't joined us in the part 1, and cannabinoids, entourage, all these sorts of key words that we need to cover before we get into reading through the report.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because we need some sort of baseline, like what we're going to talk about. So it's a really interesting system that we have, this endocannabinoid system. Everybody has it, mammals have it. So, your pet has it, and you have it as a human being. And this is a system that's designed to regulate and modulate all the other systems in our bodies. And we discovered it in 1992. So if you went to medical school, your doctor went to medical school, and even recently I've talked to healthcare practitioners, they never learn about the endocannabinoid system. So just be aware, if you're speaking to your healthcare professional, you may be doing more educating, and if they're open to it, then you can have a good collaborative experience. But basically the way the system works is it gets signals from other systems within our bodies, goes like salmon swimming upstream, send those signals back to a central nervous system, to our brain. And then what we do is we excrete endogenous endocannabinoids to be able to modulate all the other systems. So those endogenous endocannabinoids are anandamide, which is, the word anand means bliss in Sanskrit. So it's our bliss hormone. That's the one that mimics, the THC mimics closely. And then the second one is 2-AG, and that one is more associated with your immune and digestive systems. And then CBD can bind, it has some affinity to that CB2 receptor, where then it creates enzymes to modulate the immune and digestive system. So together, when you're talking about entourage, together you have all these different phytocannabinoids from the plant. Some of them have affinity for receptors like CB1 and CB2, as I mentioned, and when we have our own deficiencies in our own endogenous naturally producing cannabinoids, we can get those from the plants. And when also to mention entourage, you also have the minor cannabinoids along with the terpenes, the essential oils that the plant produces too, and all of them together produce an effect. And the effect is is based on an individual predisposition. So if you're expressing something genetically, or you have a predisposition to a deficiency, you're lucky to get that from the plant. But getting the right mix of those cannabinoids and terpenes, that's sort of the trick and the secret sauce of getting it correct. And that's why it's personal.
And that's hence the reason for the report and the importance of the report, because I think you'll see that I think I have a slight issue with THC from initial looking over it. But
I did not see your report. Just in fairness to the audience, the way it works, because we are all the information is de-identified, and we would never be able to see your report. So you will be sharing your screen, and I'm put on a hot seat just like you are. You're sharing your information. I'm on a hot seat. I have to interpret it now. So I'll try to do my best.
I just wanted to mention as well, like the importance of destigmatizing cannabis, and we touched on this in the last episode. Sorry, I still got my morning voice. my waking up voice is still here.
No, well, it's early. It's early for you.
I have spoken to Eben and Anna. So, in sport even, it's incredible what it's doing for these elite athletes, to helping them go through injuries and avoid, pharmaceutical medicines, to all sorts of, inflammatory issues, to mental conditions, to all sorts of things. So, it's really worthwhile reading up. And I think I saw a little bit on your Instagram the other day about actually getting quality information, and I'm much the same. You don't go out and you don't search out for certain things where they shouldn't be, giving you the best of what the information should be. You need to be able to search for the good quality information that's going to give you, what you need, and not take it from a stance that may not be true. So, and that's hard, that's critical thinking, that's searching the web. But again, podcasts like yours, really exploring those experts and listening to them and getting a little bit more curiosity surrounding the subject, and then sharing that with other people. Super important.
Yeah, and you have to sift through all the garbage as well, because look, there's a reason why there's not enough research. I always hear it's not enough research. Prove it to me, and there's a reason for that, because the U.S. federal government wanted it that way. Even now, and they're losing some of the research, along with the federal government, but all the research that was done prior to that, all the cannabis had to be, procured from a government-regulated site in Mississippi, university site, which gave you only one type of cannabis to use, which is something that you don't get in your normal, daily use. So even the studies that have been done are suspect. And then there's patents that the U.S. government has in place. So I find it interesting why, somebody can go and investigate why you're scheduling this as a Schedule 1 with no medicinal purposes, and you have patents in place and you're protecting. So just interesting for somebody to be able to do their Google research and try to sift through all the garbage and get to the real truth, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. And I must tell you, I teach at where I lecture, I teach botany and manufacturing. And a part of, my lecturers and those who are creating the subjects are going to hate me for saying this, but in the lectures that I teach, cannabis is still portrayed as a toxin, yep. As a poison. And so I quickly write that wrong while I'm talking through with the students. But it blows my mind that in an alternative, education like we have in naturopathic medicine, we're still teaching that, and that's not on.
Yeah, it's I had on my podcast, last one I had Dr. Uma Dhanabalan. So Dr. Uma talked about, she's incredible anyway. Her energy is so great, but she talked about, traditional medicine. Traditional medicine is plant-based medicine. Everything else that we're doing now is not traditional medicine. So it's interesting because that's the medicine that everybody grew up with originally. And if you think about all the synthetics that are being made, they're just derivatives of the plant medicine that was derived, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And all it's doing is stimulating your own neurochemistry. So, you know, for people, especially they're doing, as you said, alternative medical therapeutics and education, that's something to be aware of, because that medicine goes back thousands of years. So I'm not sure which one is really the alternative.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, it blows my mind. Anyway, so, you know, we talk a lot about herbs, and then this particular herb comes up and it's listed under the toxins and poisons section. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah, all right, guys, scrap this. Let's re-talk about all this.
Good for you. Good for you. Right the wrongs.
All right, so I guess let's just jump in. Is there anything that you need to say before, you know, obviously, for me, taking the test, it was just a simple cheek swab for me.
Yep.
Sending it back to you guys, and then, you know, hearing my report and getting results back. So it was very, very simple, very, very easy. And I really love the platform you've put this on, and the usability is just incredible. I really enjoy it, looking through my report. So that's just some feedback for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's getting better. And the more people use the platform, the better it gets, because we use AI to be able to start getting better suggestions with people. So that's kind of how it works.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right. So let me just, if you can go to the homepage first, and then go into the report. I just want to kind of explain to people what you would see on the homepage. So right now we're doing a concierge service as well, and we're offering that to people just to teach them how to read the report. So it's like a 15-minute concierge call, and then we have telemed specialists if somebody has a question about a specific disease, because this is for information purposes only. It's not to be used as a diagnostic tool. The second thing is you have several different areas on here, which is your DNA results. Then you have your health profile. Then you have your drug interaction report. And all those together will create your personalized wellness plan. The personalized wellness plan is created based on certain symptomatic conditions. There's multiple wellness plans based on, you know, what's most important to you. So you can see, because certain things can be contradictory. And what I want to preface, so, you know, everybody can understand that just because you have a genetic predisposition to something, it doesn't mean that it's going to show up. It's going to trigger and express itself. So being able to understand that this is your blueprint, and what you do can actually help express or turn things on or off. So as you're going through this, you're saying, okay, well, if I have a marker for depressive states and I have a marker for stress reactivity, well, the formulations that I'm being suggested are a complete opposite. Well, yeah, because can you actually, I don't know this to be true or not, I'm putting it out in the universe, can you be depressed and stressed at the same exact time? And that's the case, maybe you're taking a something that is helping you with your depressive feelings, maybe in the evening time, and during the day, maybe you're trying to address your stress and anxiety. So those are the formulations and suggestions that may come out of the report. So I just want to preface this up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first thing you want to do is click on view your DNA results as you were. So just to explain this briefly, and then I'll answer any questions you have, but basically the way it works is you have symptomatic conditions, and then within those symptomatic conditions, you have individual reports. Within those reports, they're color-coded. So green means that there is no variant detected. There is no genetic risk associated with that specific report. Yellow means there is a variant detected, at least one variant, and you have a possible genetic predisposition for that to express itself. And red means there's multiple variants within that report, so you may have an exponentially higher risk of that expressing itself.
And I think that's an important point that you made before, is that, because I get this question a lot, particularly from clients wanting to find out about their genetics, and also other healthcare professionals coming and saying, you know, what our genetics is, and because I have this genetics means that I'm going to have to be on this drug, or I'm going to have to be doing this. No, there's an expression, and it's very important that we understand that depending on what we do in our life, our lifestyle or our learned behaviors, or what we eat, what we drink, all those sorts of things really determine what shows up in our genetics or what gets turned on or off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any specific questions, but what we can do is like scroll through this really briefly so I can scan it, and then I'll point out a couple of specific things maybe to open up and discuss.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So just go down for you.
Digestive reports, drug dependence. So yeah, opioid dependence. Just to pause for opioid dependence, and you have an alcohol dependence predisposition. So just something to be aware. I don't know if it's true or not, but just be aware of that. Opioid dependence is an interesting one because we've had a lot of healthcare professionals, pain management specialists, who've been using the report to show their patients that they have a predisposition of opioid dependence and give them a different suggestion. I didn't realize this until I started speaking with a lot of doctors. The patients are requesting opioids a lot more. And I actually hurt my ankle. I tore a ligament in my ankle on one of my crazy hikes. And I didn't know. I went to urgent care. My foot blew up. It was huge. And I would call me Fred Flintstone foot and all that stuff. So I went there, got an x-ray, and they're like, yeah, it's not broken. I'm like, okay, torn ligament, whatever, you can get surgery. I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I have my own protocol. But they asked me if I wanted any painkillers, opioids, right away. And I'm like, well, what about just CBD? Why wouldn't you offer me, cannabinoid? They didn't even think about that. So like opioids is so easy for somebody to prescribe immediately. It just goes there. And if you have an opioid dependence predisposition, no wonder we have an opioid epidemic. So that there's a gene for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll keep going through, and then we can, if you want me to just duck into any of these, and we can see what that looks like.
Susceptibility. Regular metabolism. Keep going. Mood. Okay, major depressive feelings, musculoskeletal, fibromyalgia, joint health. Got it. Rheumatoid arthritis. Some nutrient deficiencies. Iron. Pain, nausea. Keep going. Sleep. Got it. THC side effects. Clear. And some vitamin deficiency. Okay, so if you can scroll all the way up to the top, and let's start with stress reactivity. And I'm going to see if I can put the piece of the puzzle together. So if you want to click on where it says variant detected, right under anxiety report of stress reactivity.
The extinction, fear extinction?
No, the third one down where it says stress reactivity.
There we go.
Yeah, I want to start with that one first because I'm going to, based on some things that I've seen already, that's kind of will help us put the pieces together, and you tell me if we're correct or not. So every single report gives you what the symptomatic condition is. Then it gives you a summary. So this one says overall, your endocannabinoid system genotype is associated with a higher stress reactivity. This can raise your risk of developing an anxiety disorder. Monitor for symptoms of high anxiety, practice stress reduction techniques, and seek professional help if you feel anxiety is significantly impacting your life. The second thing that the report does, it gives you a suggestion on a ratio that's more aligned with you. But I'm going to skip that for a minute and scroll down a little bit to the science. I want to get into the science a little bit so people understand and see if I can put this together. So we're looking at the gene called Thc, which is fatty acid amide hydrolase. Now, Thc is an interesting single nucleotide polymorphism SNP. That one produces an enzyme that breaks down anandamide. And you remember, and your audience knows that anandamide is our bliss hormone. That's the one that's released when we want some euphoria, and it's also released to help balance a stressful event. So scroll down a little bit so I can read that. Okay. It says that Jodi, you may experience more anxiety when stressed. So I want to just stick to the science just for another minute. What it's showing you is that the gene Thc, it's showing you the RSID, the location of where that specific SNP is, and it's giving you your genotype. And I'll explain what that is in a second. I just want to kind of give the overview. Also, it has a reference, a peer-reviewed reference to a study in multiple studies where it says there's been studies that are associated with how thought impacts stress and anxiety when stressed. You can also see how you can compare to other population groups, meaning genealogy. So if you were of, if you want to click that in the middle, it'll show you if you're of African descent versus East Asian descent versus European descent, how prevalent that genotype is in your population group. So we're all created differently, and you can see that East Asian population is a lot more prevalent than, you know, the American population, as an example, for instance. Okay. So going back to the report and explaining the science. So I'm going to try to see if I can, and scroll down just so that people know that there's an FAQ on the bottom. All the way in the bottom is an FAQ that you can see how the endocannabinoid system is involved in stress reactivity. So anyone that you press, it'll just open it up a little bit more, and you can geek out on the science if you want to. But if you don't, that's fine too. We can, you know, skip all that and get to the meat of it. But this is the one I really want to talk about because it has a really direct correlation between brain and body. So what happens, and you know a lot of this too, so you can correct me if I'm wrong in certain ways, but when you have a stressful event, there's somebody cuts you off in traffic, or you're running late somewhere, or, you know, there's something that happens when you're stressed. You have all these neurochemicals are pumped into your bloodstream, and you have dopamine, you have norepinephrine, you have cortisol, especially, and all that's pumped into your bloodstream. And when you realize that there's no lion chasing you in the jungle, then all of a sudden your body then starts releasing other chemicals to get you back to balanced homeostasis. One of those chemicals happens to be anandamide. What happens is this genotype, and scroll up a little bit, I want to explain what that Thc is to your audience. So you see it says genotype. So your genotype of Thc, your DNA has a code. Just the way computers have a binary code, ones and zeros, your DNA has a code too, which is a C, a T, an A, and a G. And they're all nucleotides. And the combination of those nucleotides that we get from our parents, creates our genotype. So that is our genetic predisposition, and that's our genotype that we inherit. When we inherit the same exact one, it's called homozygous, and when we inherit two different ones, it's called heterozygous. So on this specific genotype, what this is saying is the person that has this produces more Thc than the average population. Now, this is extremely important because when you have a stressful event over time and you're not producing enough anandamide, the reason why you're not producing enough anandamide, because Thc creates an enzyme that breaks down anandamide. So to give you a visual, think of it as like Pac-Man eating anandamide. The more Thc you have, the less anandamide you have. So over time, if you're not producing enough anandamide, that cortisol tends to reduce your pH level and you become more acidic. If that happens, you can start feeling some discomfort because your immune system will create a cytokine, an overactive immune response, usually in your joints. You're going to feel that in your ankles, in your knees, in your wrists, in your elbows, and especially if you have predisposition to arthritis or joint pain or anything like that, it can actually trigger that as well. So people walk around inflamed. The other part of that is gut health. So if you have a predisposition to IBD or other gut issues, that acidity moves into your gut health, triggers that genetic expression. So now people are walking around, you know, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt, I have arthritis, I have, and I'm not disparaging anybody's medical conditions. Absolutely, it's true. It's not. I'm not diagnosing them. I'm just trying to put the piece of the puzzle together for that. So when that happens is, it moves into your gut health and you have this expression. Now, the good news is that THC binds to your CB1 receptor and it actually helps to mimic the way anandamide works. So if you have a deficiency, and because you're producing more Thc, you have a deficiency because you're not producing enough of your own natural anandamide, especially in those stressful events. So when you subsidize with a little bit of THC, now you're getting the right amount of anandamide to be secreted mostly from your amygdala. And if that's the case, you can get yourself back to balance. The issue here is that taking too much THC actually does the opposite. So it triggers your stress reactivity and creates that anxiety or the anxious event. Now, in your case, you have the trifecta of stress reactivity, fear extinction, and PTSD, and predispositions. So what happens is, let me see if I can paint a picture. What can happen is if you're consuming a THC formulation that is high in THC with a terpene profile that also boosts dopamine, gives you that lift up like limonene, pinene, what can happen is, vasodilator, your heart will pump faster, all that other stuff, but it can trigger that stress reactivity, right? So now you have a stressful event. However, because you also have predispositions to that fear extinction and PTSD, what you're not only dealing with the stress that's activated in the moment, but you're also pulling up memories that happened maybe when you were a kid or 2 years ago, or last time you had a brownie and you had a freak out. Now it's not only that moment, it's the moment of all that stuff coming together. And people that have PTSD and fear extinction, this is what, psychologists and people who really study neuroscience, I had these conversations, and what they said was, basically, if you have this movie that's playing in your head, you're not only addressing what's happening in the moment, but your memory of something that happened when you were a kid or another stressful event, it gets pushed down into your subconscious because your brain is always trying to conserve energy. Yeah. However, when you have this event, it's triggered. Now you can pull up all those memories that didn't just happen right now in the moment, that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 month ago, 1 week ago. And so being really, really cognizant of, having this predisposition, that you can actually find something that aligns more with you, where you subsidize your anandamide with THC, but also have the right terpene profile and not too much THC, that you will not have that adverse event. So if you scroll up a little bit, it's going to show you basically I'm assuming you didn't do your health profile, but if you did, see it says 20 to 1 to 4 to 1, linalool and beta-caryophyllene. Yeah. And the reason why it's giving you a range, because we don't know your experience with THC, but what it's suggesting is that you want a little bit more CBD to THC ratio, and linalool and beta-caryophyllene as your primary and secondary terpene profile. And the reason for that, if you want to click on the word response where it says about the ingredients. Yeah. So basically, we already know about cannabinoids, but if you can click on the word linalool right next to the word cannabinoid. So linalool, in studies, and shows you what the references are, has been shown to lessen the anxiety that's provoked by THC. And beta-caryophyllene, which is next to that, what that does, it actually works, it has a little bit of affinity for CB2, which we talked about, regulating your immune and digestive systems, and it works really well in research with CBD as an anti-inflammatory. So together, you're actually creating a formulation with more CBD, with the right terpene profile, and a little bit less THC to subsidize that anandamide. And that is a more aligned formulation specifically for stress reactivity and anxiety.
Awesome. When I read this report for the first time, and obviously I don't have your insight, but first of all, when I saw that, I thought, I'm a pretty chilled person. I can deal with this. But then as I was reading through it, I'm like, oh, yes, that's me. Oh, okay. Wow. So this report actually brought to my attention the fact that I don't actually deal with stress very well because it's a prior memory and it brings up the feelings of those. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Right.
So you can go back to the report and ask any more specific questions, but I can show you back in the report where you have stress and then you have some depressive markers as well. And if we can focus on that, because I think people ask, and by the way, there is a schizophrenia marker. I just want to make sure that it's extremely, extremely rare, but there's been studies, and I've talked to a lot of the researchers who've been doing these studies, and what my position is that if you have a predisposition to psychosis and schizophrenia, there's a lot of different things that can trigger that. It's very rare that cannabis does, but we have to include it because it's a marker for that. One of the things that happens more often with people nowadays, I'm not trying to scare anybody away from cannabis, but I'm just trying to give you what the predispositions are. It's psychonomic effect after use of THC. If you can click on that, and then we'll go into the wellness plan. I just want to explain that, because and this happened to many people that I've spoken with. If you have a predisposition to stress reactivity, and maybe you're a poor metabolizer of THC, especially with edibles, I heard this a lot with people. They consume that, they have a slower onset. It's a much more powerful onset because of liver conversion to 11-oxyhydroxide. But also, if you have this predisposition to psychosis, this is what it means, psychonomic effects, it can actually trigger that expression, and people have a dissociative experience. And they've ended up in hospital and other places. So just being aware that you have this predisposition, as you can see, the formulation is very, very similar, or it's the same exact formulation as the one for anxiety and stress. So that's the trigger that can actually trigger that event.
Very interesting. Yes, I have had those experiences when I have had edibles. It's taken a while to come on.
Well, yeah, if you, so you can go back to the report and ask any questions that you want specifically on that, and then we can go into your personalized wellness plan, and I'll explain that.
Okay. Well, firstly, I just wanted to cover off. So you've obviously got the schizophrenia after chronic use and the THC dependence. So that's also showing. So I've got a lot of red there. Yeah. So for me, I would be taking that as I do have to be very careful with the THC and make sure there is that CBD as a majority of the component of the formulations.
Yeah, and CBD works as an adverse agonist of THC, so that it sort of gives you that balance. And people look, smoking a joint may not be the trigger for that. If you're a poor metabolist, I didn't see your metabolic function, so we'll look at that when we get to you, or we can look at it now. We can look at it when you get to your wellness plan. Okay. But it's about edibles and also concentrates. So I don't think people realize that when they're doing a dab hit or they're vaporizing a concentrate, you're looking at THC. Like in California, the average THC amount in cannabis flower is somewhere around 25% THC now, which is pretty high. In Canada, because they don't have any branding, it's even higher than that. It's sort of like California was 15 years ago. They're going for the highest THC for lowest price. But you're looking at a concentrate that's somewhere at very least 60% THC or higher. And if you're going to experience and trigger that genetic predisposition, well, a concentrated amount of THC is probably one of the best ways they can trigger that. So being aware that you have this predisposition and consuming a concentrated amount of THC, that can actually be a trigger for that expression.
Yeah. And yeah, I've experienced that with variants because of cannabis, from various sources. So here in Australia, obviously there's nothing that is controlled. And so you are getting it off the street, and well, unless you know someone who has a really good source of it, which some of us are lucky to. But when you get the bushweed, as we call it, it's very strong and very high in THC. So you definitely know when you've hit the bad jackpot.
There you go. It's so interesting to me because I years ago, you used to have maybe 7% THC. 10%, I mean, that's they used to call kind bud back in my day. But I was in a podcast with this gentleman who's a little bit older, and he was saying, well, I kind of equate one joint equals one beer. And I was like, brother, let me tell you something. If you're going to smoke a whole joint by yourself of today's cannabis versus one beer, you're making a wrong comparison. Maybe those are your Acapulco Gold from back in the 70s when you used to consume. It is not the same cannabis anymore. So just be aware.
Oh yeah, they're meant to be shared, those ones.
Exactly. So if you have any other specific questions in the report, but you can click on either any report or go back to the homepage and click on your personalized wellness plan. Okay. Either way.
What I found fascinating was a lot of these reds were very true. So definitely I have an asthma susceptibility, had asthma as a child, and even rhinitis, definitely, and susceptible to that if I don't look after myself. And even seasonal mood problems surprised me, but this particular winter has been hard for us over in Australia. We don't have the sunshine that we normally have, which I've noticed, and that again rings very true for me. And iron is one of those things that I've always struggled with. And again, it leads back into inflammation and then the stress reactivity as well, because, obviously iron doesn't get absorbed very well when you're inflamed, or, inflammation is present in the body from stress or various other things as well. So that was very true for me also. So a lot of these things I found very fascinating to look through and go, oh yeah, wow, that's me. So very cool, very cool. And it's just the way that it's laid out. It's just very interesting, the fact that you can click in there and it gives you extra information. There's so many different parts to the report. So you get so much out of it. I really love it.
Yeah, thank you. We wanted to make it's not just cannabis, it's your endocannabinoid system. There's so many different factors that affect it. And that's why, we talk about, it's cannabis is personal. It's about your DNA and cannabis use. It's not really that. It's about your endocannabinoid system and different things that you can do to modify and modulate your endocannabinoid system so you can experience, personalized optimal health.
Yeah, absolutely. So all we need now in Australia is to be able to access these very unique profiles of cannabinoids and terpenes. So that's the next step here, because a lot of people from Australia will be like, damn it, no, I can't actually do anything with this. And it's
you can, and I'll tell you how. So if you want to click on your personalized wellness plan, because we deal with people all over the world, and same, even in the United States, every single state has its own different laws. Like I live in California, we're spoiled. We have every single product you can possibly imagine. But by the way, not all of them are tested for terpenes. Most of them are not. There's no mandate for that. Different states have different regulations. Yes, we don't have heavy metals in our cannabis. We don't have pesticides because they're testing for that, but they're not testing for terpenes. Certain brands are, certain aren't. So there's always room for improvement. But here's the way that I would use this test if I didn't know the products. And we'll show you the product matching part of it. It's about understanding what aligns better with you. And when you know that for you, linalool, beta-caryophyllene, they seem to be the right types of terpenes for you, even if you don't have test results for them. I'll give everybody a couple of hints on how to identify that. Number one, if you want to have a more balanced formulation, so understand that, having some CBD, as you were mentioning, Jodi, having some CBD there will help with that. Second of all, use your nose, go old school, and linalool is also found in lavender. So it has a certain smell that's similar to what lavender has. Limonene is citrusy. So understand that. Myrcene, which is really sedative and it's really found a lot of indica-dominant hybrids, it smells skunky or diesely. So use your nose and let your nose kind of guide you. Beta-caryophyllene is found in clove. So it's got a clove smell. So if you don't know anything, you don't have any test results or anything, the nose knows.
Absolutely. The organoleptics, as we call them.
There you go.
Botany terms.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to write that one down. So the way the wellness plan works, we have several different wellness plans based on symptomatic conditions that are more important to you. So we'll start with the anxiety. So as we talked about, you have three. And by the way, each one of them has a tutorial, so you can watch a video if you want to learn a little bit more about that. We have that on each page. And then this says you have three genetic predispositions related to anxiety or stress that we talked about: fear extinction, PTSD, and stress reactivity. We also show you the THC side effects that you have predispositions for. And once again, I keep saying this, but I want to like really get this home. Just because you have a predisposition doesn't mean that they're going to express itself, but just being aware of it is important. So you have those THC side effects potentially. And then scroll down a little bit more. You also have some sleep genetics. And this is important because as you know, and you've spoken about this before too, this whole, so bruxism and insomnia. Bruxism is grinding your teeth. I have that too. Insomnia is insomnia. But what happens is, and I've been learning about this more and more, when you're not getting good restful sleep, it actually affects the expression of your stress and anxiety related markers. So during the day, you can suppress that. At night, it comes out. For me, it comes out in bruxism, which I grind my teeth at night. No matter what I do during the day, and if I don't meditate before I go to sleep, I actually feel that when I wake up. I'm like, oh, my jaws, I must have been grinding, my teeth at night. So getting your formulation or getting your stress addressed during the day will help you with the sleep. If you're not getting good quality sleep, you can trigger that, and you're sort of in a hamster wheel all day long. So I think that's important to point out as well. The drug interaction report. I don't know if do you take any prescription medication?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. So the way this works is if somebody is taking prescription medication, let's just do it for the fun of it so the audience can see. If you want to click on begin survey, and this is going to be really challenging because I don't know anything about prescription medication, but we'll just pick some randomly. Go just next and agree next, and just let's search. I don't know. The only one that I recognize a few, but my friend was on clozapine, so I don't know if you want to. You can pick any random. I think it's CL.
Oh yes.
There it is.
Yep.
There it is. Well, anyway, it's close enough. This is just a test to show the audience. That's fine. Clozapine.
Yep.
Bam. Generate report. And if you want to go, you have to go back to your wellness plan.
Yep. Let's go this way.
So it should be in there. Personalized wellness plan. Click that. And just so everybody can see, scroll up a little bit. So that medication is already in there. And what it says is that cannabis is a moderate inhibitor of this medication. There's a reference to the drug bank study. So it says consider reducing your THC dose by 50% and your CBD dose by 25%, excuse me. And then if you see on the bottom, it says if you've taken a medication, you should consult your healthcare professional. So we never want to give anybody an indication to modify their prescription medication. Please speak to your healthcare professional. One of the things I try to suggest to people is if you're taking prescription medication of any kinds, especially SSRIs, so antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, blood thinner medication, warfarin, etc., there is a pharmacogenomic study that shows that certain cannabinoids interact with its efficacy. My suggestion is always don't take them at the same time, stagger your consumption. And then somebody would ask, well, how long? Well, it depends on what type of metabolizer you are. So you set up the right page. This shows you metabolic function for CBD and THC dosing. So if you want to click on where it says THC dosing, view dosing report, and then we'll come back to that. So basically what it does, it looks at your CYP, your cytochrome P450 marker that's specific to metabolizing THC, which is CYP2C9, and it says that you're an intermediate metabolizer, so consider reducing your dose. But not only consider reducing your dose, you may have to wait a little bit longer between taking your prescription medication and then your cannabinoid formulation. So how long? I'm not exactly sure. I would say speak to your healthcare professional, but I would wait maybe at least an hour or so for your prescription medication to metabolize before you consume your cannabinoid therapeutics.
Mm. Mm. Very interesting. Very cool. And then, yeah, then we've got some of the CYPs associated with CBD as well. Excellent.
Correct.
Yeah. Really cool. Really cool.
And then on the bottom, the very last thing that I want to show, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you scroll down a little bit lower on your personalized wellness plan, it'll give you product matching suggestions. And I know this isn't for every product, but you see where it says formulation suggestions. So now you have an idea, something a little more balanced. I know it's 21 to 4-to-1, but it depends on your experience with THC. Even if it's a 1-to-1 or close to that, if you've experienced THC for a while, that's fine. Linalool, beta caryophyllene, and then when you click display products, and once again, this is right now it's US and Canada that we have products for, but the future is the way we're going to do this is we're getting test results. So certificates of analysis from products, we're running it through an algorithm, and we're showing what percentage of match that is. In the US, we have the law allows for hemp-derived products that are 0.3% THC or less that you can buy online and have it delivered to your home. If it's a product that has more THC than that, like some of these nano 5-DNA products, if you click shop now, you'll go to their website, you put in your zip code, we'll geofence, and we'll show you where that product is available, or they'll show you where that product is available. And then you can search by different modalities, different categories. So if you want to see flower versus tincture, on the left side, you can do that. And then if you wanted to search for, all right, now I got my product to help me with stress. If I want to see what will help me with unwinding, you can click on either the heart, the hands with the heart, which is your personal shopping assistant that's right on the right, or there, and then it'll guide you through any other products. So if you want to click on, like, all the way in the bottom, I think is sleep and unwind. The sleep support. So you can click a view all matching products, and it'll go into your DNA, and it'll pull up products that help with sleep and etc. And then right now, like I said, our selection of location, it's only United States and Canada. Drop down.
I'm blown away by what you get from just paying for a report. It's incredible. The value in this is amazing. I'm blown away, Len.
Well, thank you. We worked really hard on this, and it's a continual process because I think we talked about this before, minor cannabinoids. And right now we're only focusing CBD, THC, and terpenes. And the reason why is we made a decision that we have to have a peer-reviewed reference. And because there aren't very few references of minor cannabinoids, we haven't included them. But there's so much more we can do and grow when we have references on CBG and CBN and CBDV and THCV. When there's studies, and we're participating in some of those studies, but we urge the scientific community and medical community, please, let's continue more studies. Let's create more references so we can get a more comprehensive report.
Yeah. And really, it gives that real solidity to practitioners and medical professionals and GPs, doctors, anyone who's seen this, and they actually look at the report, and there is all the evidence there for the purposes of what they're looking at. So it's amazing. This is what we need to be able to stop this stigma. It's incredible. I'm going to show my report to a few of my students as well, because I think it's just so worthwhile them seeing this for themselves, and just knowing what's available out there and what's coming, because it's not going to be long until we're going to be able to access some of this stuff in Australia. So we already can access specific terpene profiles. So we can actually access terpenes individually as well as combinations. So if you were able to, you can get your CBD, and then you can combine that with extra, terpenes. I would say that could be also a good option for this point in time where we're at.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The only caution that I would say is percentage of CBD and method of consumption, percentage of terpenes. Some terpenes at higher rates can create some toxicity. So just be aware of that. Also, method of consumption. What I mean by that is if you're going to vape your terpenes with your cannabinoids at a high temperature, some of them convert to different substances. So just be aware of your method of consumption.
Yeah. Now, do you have a preferred method of consumption for these? You know, there's so many. There's liposomal, there's tinctures, there's vapes, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's so many methods of consumption. I think it's a personal preference. For me, during the day, I take my supplements usually with either a capsule or a tincture. I prefer tincture or sublingual for my CBD, and I take a very high CBD, very low THC sort of focus product as my supplement. And the reason why I want to avoid my first pass, I don't want to have my liver interact with any of my cannabinoids. So underneath my tongue, buccal cavity, anything like that. At night, I prefer flower. There are certain types of cultivars that align better with me, and that's my preferred. Old school, so I like a little bit of flower, but I want to kind of do this PSA for people on THC late at night. I've had so many people say, you know, I just smoke a lot of cannabis before I go to bed, and it kind of knocks me out. And I'm really cautious with people because you have brain activity. So you're not really, if you have your Oura ring or whatever sleep tracker you're wearing, just be aware, because when that happens, you may not be getting your good quality REM and all those sleep cycles. You know, you may be knocked out, but you may not be getting your quality sleep because your brain is active. So it doesn't necessarily have to be high THC, or just, you know, consume and then wait a little while before you actually go to sleep.
Yeah, and that's so true for many things. And I definitely recommend everyone read Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, because it sort of dispels some of those things that we think that sleeping tablets, you know, pharmaceutical sleeping tablets do. They're really just sedating us. They're putting us into a false sleep versus actually into a real sleep. So you have to optimize your whole day and your whole body to actually attain that sleep. It's not as easy as just taking something. So it just comes in that foundational health, really.
You mean that Ambien and people popping Ambien is not that good for you? I didn't know that.
All I can say is that sometimes it aids people to get them into that sleep, and you know that makes them feel like they've actually had a bit of a sleep, and it can help. But
I heard people doing some weird tweets when they're on Ambien too. So you know, I wonder why.
Oh my goodness, the world's really quite funny at the moment. Actually, it's always been, but I'm getting quite a lot of amusement out of what people put out. Creativity in different forms.
That is true. That is true.
Well, thank you so much, Len. I don't want to keep you for too long, and I really appreciate you, and thank you. I put you on the spot for that, and you've given me even such a really good outline of the report. Obviously, we didn't go into all the details, but everyone got a gist of where I lie and where they might be able to get benefit out of it as well. And I'm really excited for the fact that, you know, this has all come in, and particularly, obviously, it is there already in the US where you can access a lot of these things. But for Australia, we've got a lot to look forward to, particularly with cannabis medicine. So I really appreciate your knowledge, your time, the effort you're putting into the industry, and you're just such a cool, funky guy. So I really appreciate you, Len.
Thank you. I appreciate having the platform, and it's great. I appreciate what you're doing. I think the more people that talk about this, the better, and we're all learning from each other. And it's a great community to be in, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. And hopefully you can come visit us, and I'll be happy to come to Australia at some point when we're able to.
Oh, absolutely. Let's hope. I'm putting my cards on next year now.
All right. Sounds good.
Quickly, so where can everyone find you? You know, for information for you, for Endocanna, and your book as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the business website is endodna, endodna.com. Me as Len May, I think on all the social media platforms, I'm Len May DNA. So you can find me there just by my name, LenMay. The book is now in pre-order on Amazon. Making Cannabis Personal. It is released, I should know this date, it's September something or another, really early on September. So you can order it, and then in September it'll be delivered. I should know that. But we have a website for the book, and I think we're given all kinds of discounts if you order the book for the Endocanna test, but it's called makingcannabispersonalbook.com. And anyway, it's all there.
Well, I'll link to all that so everyone can find you and find all about the book. And I do recommend reading the book. I haven't read it yet, but I know the quality that you would put out, and I'm excited to read it and to give that different perspective to people. So I do recommend everyone go grab a copy.
Thank you. And if anybody gets bored, they can listen to Everything is Personal podcast as well after they listen to Revital Health.
You're funny. No, I enjoy your podcast a lot. So I'm going to link up obviously to that as well. But there's, I don't think there's any competition in this world. And I hate to think like that anyway. It's, like all sharing and caring, and we're all there to help each other and help others. And so it just has to be that way in this world. It can't be a dog eat dog. It's too much of that already.
I agree. Just kidding.
I know you were. All right. Thanks so much, Len. I will talk to you soon, and we'll be in contact. And yeah, good luck with everything that you've got coming up.
Thank you, Jodi. You too. Appreciate it.